Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to some more StarCraft 2 Legacy of the Void. Today I got a Zerg vs Terran for you that I have played a couple of days ago and I have been trying to switch it up a little. So this is going to be a game played on the King Sejong Station, and King Sejong Station is one of the main reasons why I have been switching up Zerg vs Terran, as you may have already noticed by the minimap or just by simply playing the game, this map is freaking enormous. And on top of that, if you actually are up against a good Terran player, they're gonna be dropping you all over the place. I mean, there's ramps pretty much everywhere. There's little high grounds and little nooks and crannies where they can hang out in. There's these rocks in the back of your base and they can drop you absolutely relentlessly if they are good. Now, I've been playing quite a lot recently. We're facing a lot of like lower end grandmasters once again. I think I'm hovering right around top 8 masters at the moment. So we are definitely playing some high end players, and I've noticed that the Roach Ravager style that I've been playing for most of Legacy of the Void just really isn't up to par. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. If you are, like, you know, anywhere below, like, Master League or so, I would highly recommend the Roach Ravager strategy. I made videos about it so many times before. Just check the channel out. I'm sure you will be able to find something that will explain it in depth. But, I've been playing that style almost exclusively. However, I've noticed that on some maps, it's just not as good. On some maps, in particular the ones that are really big and are really droppable, I guess, like droppable, the Roach Ravager style just doesn't really add up, as your opponent is just simply going to be able to drop at some point a little bit too aggressively. They'll take out a mineral line, and all of a sudden you are behind. And on top of that, on maps like this, it's pretty difficult to take Roach Ravager aggression engagements, simply because, let's say I get there with my +1/+1 and roach speed right at his front door, and he just sort of sits there with a bunch of siege tanks. Like, I can't really do very much. So for that very reason, I wanted to try something different. And this is going to be the very first time that I'm going to be trying this Muta Ling Bane style once again. I mean, I still play it every now and then, but this is like the first attempt where I'm actually actively trying to make it work. So, in most of the cases, when players, or Zerg players that is, want to be playing Mutalisks Zergling Banelings, which is one of the most common unit compositions you can be going for, they go for a 2-base-1. They try and tech up as quickly as possible, and they try and really get that Mutalisk count growing as early as possible into the game before they really get any kind of economy. Now, I've tried that as well. Doesn't really work out very much if your opponent opens up with relatively quick missile turrets, because they can just sort of counter everything that you're doing with relative ease. I mean, they just sort of get a missile turret and all of a sudden your 4 Mutalisks are not going to be achieving very much. They're going to go for a 3rd base and you're just going to be behind right from the get-go, economically speaking. So here's my plan at this point in the game, okay? Here's what I'm trying to achieve here. I want to be going for a relatively standard, you know, Roach Ravager timed standard, 3rd base timing. I want to be getting a relatively safe amount of Zerglings with that as well. I want to be getting my upgrades for the Zerglings early on then too, but eventually I want to be teching up towards Mutalisk. Now that does mean a couple of things. First and foremost, I obviously am going to be relying on Zerglings and Banelings for the majority of the early game. I need to make sure I micro reasonably well, and this is what most of the Korean professionals do, like they just micro extremely well and it works out in their favor. Or, you know, I'm gonna have to get some additional queens. So in this particular case, I'm gonna go up to 4 queens if I'm not mistaken here in total, at least early on. I may add on a couple more later on, but at the very least, that's a reasoning behind it. So by no means am I trying to rush up to lair, okay? I'm not trying to rush up to lair, get those mutas out as soon as possible. Instead, I want to make sure that I play a safe early game. I want to be getting a bunch of Zerglings out, and then eventually we'll be going for the Mutalisk count as well. Now, the primary reason why I want to be playing Mutas is because they're great at picking up drops, they're great at picking up, and here we do get the 3rd base by the way, but they're great at picking up engagements, and if the Terran player overextends, Mutalisks, Zerglings, and Banelings are capable of chasing them down, right? The Mutas can be taken out the Medivacs, you can catch drops obviously before they even happen if you've got reasonable overload spread, and everything just lines up a little bit nicer once you get to that solid Mutalisk count, and obviously getting there most of the time is going to be the issue. And that is also the main reason why I wouldn't advise playing Muta Ling Bane unless you're at a little bit of a higher level, just because in many situations, like your crew spread needs to be on point, your queen injects needs to be spot on, you can't really miss any of those, you gotta make sure you got solid map vision, solid map awareness, and in general, like, you need like 300 actions per minute on average, it seems like, to play Mutalisk Bane or Muta Ling Bane. Like, otherwise you're just not gonna be, you know, you're not gonna be having time enough here to really get it going properly. So in this particular case, as you can see, I got my 3rd base coming up already. I believe I ended up losing like 1 worker to that Reaper. Yeah, not ideal, but we ended up catching the Reapers, so I guess it, you know, it plays out reasonably okay. and that situation as well. And I am getting my double evolution chambers here at the same time as I'm starting up my lair, and very soon I will be getting some extra gases as well. Now, I've noticed that, as you can see by the way, I got a stupid amount of Zerglings, way more than I normally have. I've got 22 already. Normally I go away with maybe like 10, 16 at most. And then a couple of roaches for safety purposes as well. But here I'm just getting some more Mutalisk, and I also got my Baneling nest out a bit earlier than is normal too. So at this point I see that my opponent is going for the double Medivac build. That seems to be one of the most common strategies that they do go for as Terran. And I don't notice right here on the minimap that the Medivacs are flying towards my natural. They were going towards my third base first, but then he actually rerouted them, completely catching me off guard. So he actually ends up doing quite a significant amount of damage here. I also DC the Widow Mine, taking a risk here. He blows up a bunch of his own units, and I end up losing 6 workers in total so far this game. Not that big of a deal, obviously, because obviously, like I said, once we get to the mid game, I'm gonna be a-okay. But surviving to that point is gonna be my main objective for the moment. Now, one of the satisfying things about playing Mutalisk Bane, and also the reason why this title of the video is gonna be Swarming the Terran, is because once you actually get to a point where, you know, you have a solid amount of units out, and we do pick up the drop by the way, but you get to the point, oh man, I forgot about that. Basically, I thought the Widow Mine wouldn't get another shot off, and I end up losing like a handful of Zerglings and a handful of workers, killing 11 workers here in total. It got the shot off just at the final second when I was about to die. But anyway, I was waiting for my sport to finish. But anyway, like the satisfying moment is once you take a mid-game advantage, you crush your opponent's attack, and then you counter-attack, and you simply overwhelm them with Zerg stuff. That is the great feeling that you're going for when you're playing these sort of games, when you're playing these sorts of styles. Now, as you can see for the moment, I've got pretty solid map awareness, I've got pretty solid map vision. I got one little unit scouting the front here as well, which is really important, so I know when my opponent is moving out. And I am just trying to saturate all my bases. In particular, now that I've lost a couple of workers, I'm trying to saturate my bases. So 7 minutes into it, I still don't quite have my lair, or I don't quite have my my spire done yet. I am creating it, however, but as you can see, I got my Baneling speed, I got my +1/+1 upgrades before that, and I'm playing a super aggressive, or a super safe, like, you know, aggressively economically speaking, I guess, like a super safe early game here, not really moving out across the map, not really trying to achieve all that much, and I'm even getting the +2/+2 upgrades, as well as a 4th base started before I'm even getting the first Spire units out. And that's really what I've been going for. Now, I've been doing this strat several times since. I even get some defensive Banes. Man, I played it super safe here. I think it's because I see a lot of stuff moving out here. The main thing that I've noticed here is that it works extremely well if you are able to catch all of the early game aggression. If you don't lose too much, and honestly I would say 11 workers is a little bit too much, but if you don't lose too much, you should be in an okay spot. So here's when my opponent starts pushing out. Now I got a lot of links incoming, I got my mutas incoming as well, and it is time to get started. Now please note, with +1/+1 upgrades, your Zerglings will be able to survive a lot longer against siege tanks than without those upgrades. So that is the reason why we get those first. Otherwise they would be able to one-shot my links, and in this particular case they're gonna be left over with a little bit of HP, allowing the Zerglings to close in on the Marines, and at that point obviously the second shell of those siege tanks are immediately going to be taking out his own Marines, because they do splash damage. Either way though, we did manage to clean up that very first engagement, and now I know that I'm gonna be in an okay spot. Now I've got my Mutalisk out, I got my +2/+2 upgrades coming in, and I'm trying to do the maximum aggression that I can. And this is where the actions per minute start being real important. Because on top of me having to obviously do my queen injects and spread creep and make sure that I am also spending on my larva, attacking up, getting upgrades, droning up my bases and all that shenanigans, I need to make sure I am also microing these Mutalisk. So at this point my APM will start going up. As you can see, it is currently at around 400 while actually playing this, and that's just because I'm producing a lot of stuff while I'm actually looking at these fights. So notice at the bottom of the screen, right, I'm doing a lot of other things while trying to micro the units, and this definitely requires a little bit more work. I mean, I definitely am not the worst player when it comes to this sort of stuff, but ideally, right, if you look at the professional gamers, like the Korean professionals, they'll be upping, or they'll be going up to like 600 actions per minute at these moments where they're microing Mutalisk. And honestly, even though I'm averaging like 400, it's pretty clear that I'm missing a lot of things, right? For example, right now I'm not spreading any creep. Now, not spreading any creep is not going to be the worst of cases, but obviously it's not ideal, right? Whereas if you play Roach Ravager, it's going to be much simpler to simply just get the army going, attack when the upgrades finish up, make sure you macro well, and I think you can get away with like 200 actions per minute at a higher level instead. Whereas Muta Ling Bane definitely requires a bunch more action. Now, I am trying to pick off whatever I can here. Obviously, do want to bait the stim. Lucky, or sadly for me, he didn't stim his entire army. Sometimes you get Terran players that are really greedy and they're like, oh no, stim all the Terran units. And then, you know, they basically lose like a quarter of their army while I'm flying away. Which, you know, sometimes happens. Sadly, in this case, though, my opponent being a little bit too good. But I've been trying this out versus Grandmaster level players. It's been working well. It's been working surprisingly well. In particular on this one in Frost Alley. Gotta be careful. Obviously, Liberators still do splash damage to air units extremely nicely. They do now do bonus damage against light, so they do the same amount of damage that they always have. But here is the main engagement. So I'm trying to be extremely patient here, right? This is before Hive is done, before I can get Ultralisk out, before I can really fight this. I'm trying to set up the biggest engagement I can. I know his units are everywhere, so if you notice on the minimap, I've spread my units out as well to get the maximum, like, flood going. But I think it is time to get started very soon. So now that his units are separated and his Marines are moving onwards, I'm running my own units away, trying to take the best engagement I can. And because he split up his own attention as well, we do manage to clean up the forces that he had. And at this point, the Zerg Swarm is gonna be advancing. At this point, playing Muta Ling Bane is glorious because I know I'm gonna be able to reinforce with so much stuff. I'm gonna be capable of making so many units, and I'm just simply gonna start, you know, raining down the damage. I'm trying to close out the game at this point in time. I'm getting Adrenal Glands, I'm getting my Ultralisk Cavern, I'm getting all of the upgrades that I need in order to transition out of this. But this is where the Swarm starts advancing, and it's extremely satisfying to play the Mutalisk or the Muta Ling Bane style. Even though I ended up losing most of my natural there because he was dropping at the same time that the main engagement was happening, my opponent is forced to GG out of the game. So for that last half minute or so, right, we had about 11 minutes of building up to that point, but I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching it. If you'd like to see more of these type of videos, do let me know by hitting that like button, but also do make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. And other than that, I want to thank y'all for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright? And I'll see you in the next one. Bye!